This is Professor Bright again. We are now going to start working on actually doing a professional problem. Okay, so the problem that I want to work with is this problem. It's out of the textbook, so it says find a formula for the inverse of the function f of x is equal to 1 plus square root of 2 plus 3x. And I actually realize that this is now not 1.7 but rather 1.6. Okay, so as I mentioned in my first two videos, the first thing I recommend really is to do the math, right? Because 5 points of the 8 points is math. Okay, so let's make sure that we're able to do this. Okay, before I start, I actually want to take a minute and think. Okay, with inverse functions, I remember there's that property with domains. Okay, so if I have like the function and the inverse of the function, and I look at the domain and the range, right? Don't they do this switching thing where domain of the function is range of the inverse and range of the function is domain of the inverse? Okay, so I want to keep that in mind. But my question is, what is the domain of f of x? Okay, well, it is a square root function, right? So anything underneath the square root must be positive. It must be non-negative, rather. So I want to say, okay, 2 plus 3x must be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, and if I solve that, x is going to be greater than or equal to, okay, subtract the 2, divide by 3, negative 2/3. Okay, so the domain here is going to be negative 2/3 to infinity. Okay, so I want to keep that in mind as I progress through. Okay, so now we can actually go through and find the formula for the function of the inverse function rather. Okay, so doing that, let's see, set y equal to 1 plus square root of 2 plus 3x, okay, and then there's always two different ways. You can either switch x and y right at the beginning, or you can solve. I like the solve and then switch method myself. So if I do that, I end up with y minus 1 is equal to, and then I'll square both sides right away. I'm going through the algebra kind of fast here. Okay, please feel free to verify this at any point. Okay, and then solving for x, what do I get? Subtract 2 and then divide by 3, so it'd be y minus 1 squared minus 2 all over 3 is equal to x, right? And then now I can switch, so I get parentheses x minus 1 squared minus 2 all over 3 is equal to y. So that means that the inverse function of f is x minus 1 squared minus 2 all over 3. Okay? No, it is not. Okay, and I hope that you realized why I did the domain first, and that's because we actually have to think about the domain here a little bit too. Is it the entire parabola? Probably not, right? Remember, well, I'll just sketch it out quickly here. Okay, so we can actually think of this function in terms of translations. It's shifted a little bit and all that stuff. But what it's going to look like is it's going to be more or less, again, this is not going to be exact, so please don't criticize my drawing too much, but it's going to look something like that. It's only half of kind of a parabola on its side, right? So I need to figure out, okay, well, which part of the domain of the inverse function do I have? Do I have the right half, left half? I don't know. Okay, maybe it would help us to think about, okay, inverses, we know that it's a reflection over the line y is equal to x. Okay, so if I reflect that, what would the image look like? Well, I think it would, again, roughly be something like this, right? So this would be f inverse if this was f. Okay, and yes, I know my drawing isn't to scale, it's just a quick little sketch. Okay, so for the domain of the inverse, I think I would need everything to the right of the vertex. Okay, so I just want to make a note where the vertex is. Okay, the x-coordinate is going to be, well, okay, is the vertex so easily discernible? I don't know. I'm going to actually rewrite this in a different form, applying the 1/3 to each piece. Okay, 1/3 x minus 1 squared minus 2/3. Ah, okay, now this is easier for me to work with. Okay, so the vertex is going to be at 1 comma minus 2/3. Okay, so that means my domain of the inverse function, okay, at least according to the my little sketch, I think is going to be from 1 inclusive to infinity. And close parentheses. Okay. So now I would normally pause here and double check all my work. Okay, and I encourage you to do the same. Perhaps I made an error somewhere. If I did, I don't see it. Okay. But at this point, I would have the math done, and this is the first critical piece of the professional problem. In the next videos, we will work on drafting out a professional problem.